I sent the notification. Hey, welcome back to another Spark Outbound Live, everyone. I'm Jonathan Sellers, CEO of Spark Outbound. And today we are going to be talking about different strategies for developing some creative audiences when using social media ads. So, if you never joined us before, Spark Outbound is a digital marketing agency focusing on lead gen primarily for B2B businesses. And on our channel, we regularly go live or post content around digital marketing, lead generation, um, specifically digital advertising, email or LinkedIn outreach, SEO content, uh, sometimes video strategies or graphic design, strategies and tactics. And today we're focusing in one specific area, kind of going a little bit deeper into the digital advertising side of things and talking specifically about social media ads. So if any of that stuff sounds like type of information you want to stay up to date on or contribute to the conversation, please subscribe to our channel and or click the notification bell so you'll get notified when we go live or when we post new content. And so we'll jump right in from here. So today the topic of developing creative audience targeting strategies for social ads. And so what we're going to be primarily talking about today for social ads is going to be Facebook, Instagram ads, and or LinkedIn ads. Also, some of this will apply like in YouTube ads as well, which is part of the Google Ads platform. But we just wanted to really kind of uncover some of the things we do for some of our clients or our own campaigns that we have found success in uncovering maybe hard to find audiences or reaching audiences for lower costs and being more efficient with the budget because of the way we're able to approach the audience in a different way. So joining me today is our creative director, Howard Campbell. He works on all of our digital ad client campaigns, creating assets that we use in the ads. Also, with coming up with some strategies around how do we do what we're talking about today. And so I wanted to let Howard introduce this concept because I think before we can get into the specifics, I think there's something more important, like more foundational, that you have to take into account when you're even beginning this process of understanding how to build the audience. So Howard, why don't you jump in with what we were discussing earlier?
Oh, sure. Um, so here's the thing, right? I mean, as Jonathan said, we focus on a lot of the different platforms, right? Um, One of my major focuses is on Facebook. And so Facebook has this thing, when you have when you're trying to create the ads, you have the interests in there. And so one thing we do is that when we're thinking about who we're trying to send the messages to, we think of the buyer persona. Okay, how old is this person? What well, what age is this person? This would be same as how old is this person, right? So that's how I mean. But you would think of like, okay, where are their position in life, um, and their interests. And now the interest is something that we really want to like to focus on because we can always sit there and say, okay, we want somebody who's in the position of a C-suite, right? You think CEO, CFO, COO. um, even CMO, right? And so when we think about things like that, you you got to understand that those are positions that was created like in they think in 80s and 90s, 1980s, 1990s, right? But over the past couple of years, they start creating these more or the more C-suite positions that are not regularly known for people, right? So you think of like the chief creative officer, you know, or the chief diversity officer, or these other type of positions that you might not know that exist unless you work in that industry, right? So instead of us just focus completely on positions, we start looking at other things they may be interested in. So if you're thinking about somebody who's has an entrepreneur spirit, you know, maybe look at somebody who might be interested in Entrepreneur Magazine or other magazines like that, like Forbes and things like that, because most of those magazines are read by C-suite people, you know. And so when you're thinking about when you're creating an audience, you want to think of just if put yourself in the shoes of that person, of when you're the buyer persona, and then think, okay, if I'm this person, what am I going? What do I do? What do I read? What do I watch? Maybe you might be looking for somebody who's interested in looking at the TV show Shark Tank or things like that. So when you're trying to find your audience, you got to go beyond the idea of um, oh well, this is this person, this is we're going to focus completely on these. Think outside the box and think of people that think of things that people may be doing as well, because you might find leads and prospects from somebody who wasn't even on that list. you know so you might find somebody who don't call themselves a CEO, but they might call themselves a founder of a company, or or a co-owner or something like that. And so when you're thinking about these things, when you're creating your audience, just like I said, sometimes it's best to think outside of the box. You know, and I, honestly, that's what we do over here at Spark Outbound, and we do this not only for ourselves but definitely for our clients as well. Don't you agree, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I do agree, and I think so. Yeah, and I think what you're saying is kind of like it's definitely the intro to what we're about to jump into, getting some more specific and thinking about some of the campaigns that we've run for clients. But I think that think outside the box concept is definitely the key, because when you're like on LinkedIn, so it depends on the platform too. When you're on LinkedIn, you can get like really specific and put all these titles in. And you could theoretically put job titles in when you're targeting on Facebook as well. But it when we're thinking of the efficiency thing, it may be more efficient to target different types of audiences, like what Howard said, based off interest. But it can be something very different. So I think Howard was planting the seed there with, think outside of just going, trying to build this profile of the person, and think about what would this person be interested in. And so, yeah, an entrepreneur would be interested in, these business focused media and those type of things. But there's been times before where we did something like this. So we do have clients that are not B2B clients. So one of them is an e-commerce client. They have a proprietary product that's geared towards the outdoors. So like people who use this are people who um, have, the persona is a person who's an outdoor person. They may be a hunter or fisherman. Um, they probably are camping. They may work in a like a like in the oil industry, or in some type of job where they are um, working outdoors, and they typically are like using their vehicle, their truck or their van, to carry everything that they use to work with them all the time, and that's how they move around. And so we could have targeted just that, and we did in the past. But we came up with this idea that, um, and before I say this, because this one could come off as a bit controversial, what I'm about to say, but the thing you have to keep in mind is when creating these audiences, it's not that you're defining 100%, it's that you're trying to reach most efficiently the most likely people to purchase or to engage with whatever it is that you're doing. So in this case, what we did was we targeted people who had interest in the outdoor type things that I was just mentioning, but also um, based off some of the customer data the client was able to give us, we determined that the majority of their clients leaned conservative, right? Politically conservative. So that has nothing absolutely to do with the product that they sell. But because we were able to reach that audience, they have seen consistent, steady growth in sales year over year, month over month, just ever since we did that, basically. And once again, creative strategy. Political affiliation has nothing to do with the product. There's plenty of people who are likely not conservative that use the product or have a need for the product. But once again, when looking at just averages and just looking at strategies, this strategy led us in, got us in front of this audience. We were able to build, maintain, stay in front of this audience, and then further build the narrative over time by retargeting the audience. And it was super cheap to do that to reach
Yeah.
this audience. So yeah, so that's cool feedback.
Can I
The
interrupt you real quick, Jonathan? Just
yeah,
1 second. You know, the thing is also is that even though we build our audience and we say we're focused on a let's say for the one client we did focus on a conservative client, right? We can later on go with a lookalike audience, right? And the lookalike audience can involve anybody else who might not be worried about the whole thing about conservative, liberal, whatever thing like that. But it's like, okay, these people are interested in these things that the other people who came in are interested in as well, and that builds the audience, make a much larger audience as well. So, like I say, it's one thing to pinpoint an audience, but it's also able to use that pinpoint to create a greater audience from that pinpoint. You know, think
yeah,
a drop of the water, and then the ripple effect and things like that.
yeah. Exactly, yeah. And also then once you have that starting point, the ad platforms typically are using automation to you know, kind of determine who's most likely to convert to because they obviously want you to be successful and keep using their platform. So as that data comes in, then the campaign becomes smarter and shows to the people who, you know, maybe an individual like Howard saying is not really conservative, but they have some of the other characteristics of the audience, but their behavior is showing the that they're likely to convert, right? So then we want to get the ad in front of them, and yeah, it's about the starting point, and it's about thinking of how do I reach it in a way because some audiences, especially B2B audiences, are hard because like when you think about building a B2B persona, typically that persona consists of company size, titles, roles and responsibilities. It's very much person work centric. And then when you get into the social platform, Facebook specifically, it's not work centric, it's personal centric. So it's like, how do you backdoor that the likelihood that you're going to get more of that work profile when you don't have those criteria or it's just not good. Like we just haven't really had a lot of success targeting just those kind of work profiles. It never from our perspective has performed as well as when we were able to creatively come up with something. And the other piece is then match the messaging and the copy to the per like tie the two together. So whatever the audience is that you're reaching out to, add components of that to your creative, to your messaging, so on and so forth. So it resonates with that audience, and it still ties in with whatever it is that you're trying to get in front of them.
Right.
So one of the so from this concept, so even in this exact scenario, one of the things that we always do, or almost always do when we're building an audience, is what we call layered audiences. I think other people use that phrase as well. And so I think layered audiences on Facebook are where you really start to get down into the more accurate motivations, interest profiles that you're trying to go after. And then it when you build a multi-layered audience, you're able to get to a much more specific person, and then you can map that creative to speak specifically to that person. So what I mean by that is when you go in there, if anybody who's been in, Facebook ads manager, um, and you've built an ad set, you've built an audience, or you're familiar with, you choose the location, you choose the age range, and then you get down, you work your way down, and you get to the section where you're building the targeting. Who is this person I'm trying to reach? So you can choose things like demographics, um, interests, and so on and so forth. And so when we say a layered audience, what we mean is when we come there and we choose something. So say we're looking for business owners, things like that. So a potential first layer could be entrepreneurs, right? Not the magazine necessarily, but I am interested in entrepreneurship, I guess. All right, so if we make that as a layer of interest, so then what will happen is Facebook says, okay, well, based off everything that you just said, there's this many million people who have shown interest in entrepreneurship. So they've read articles about business, they've whatever, clicked on things that were related to entrepreneurship, and so we put them into this bucket. So then the options that you have from there is you can keep adding more interests or more demographics to that layer, or you've probably noticed that there's something below that that says narrow the audience or expand the audience. And so what we typically do is narrow the audience. So we add another layer. That's why we call it a layered audience. So the first layer, just for round numbers, just say there's 10 million people who in your target area who are interested in entrepreneurship. If we then added a layer and say we want to target people who are parents, right? So then we add the second layer and we say, and also must be parents of children in high school. Okay. That's something you can choose. Okay. So then what happens is it goes from 10 million to just say 5 million. We're just doing this for round numbers. And so then we say, and also must be, I don't know, just income level. So must be in the top 10% of the income level in their area. So then you go from 5 million to 1 million or something like that. And so each new layer that you add in, you're saying everything above this layer must be true about this person, and also this next layer must be true. So that's obviously every time you do that, you're going to get a smaller and smaller audience. Um, and then you could even say, and must like golf,
Hmm.
right? So you get an audience of people who are entrepreneurs. They are, I'm going to try to remember what I just said. They have children in high school. They are in the top 10% of their zip code in income, and they like golf. So then that would tee you up. Sorry about that, but that would tee you up to create an ad that includes golf references, right? Because now you have that interest piece that maybe have nothing to do with whatever it is that you're trying to show these people, but you know that there's a high likelihood that they fall within your ideal client profile, and here's an interest that you can use to differentiate the message you're putting in front of them, um, to potentially catch their attention at a higher rate as they're scrolling through, or as they see your ad in an app, or if it's in the audience network, wherever they see it. websites. So that's the concept of layered audiences that we use. So, Howard, did you have any what am I missing about layered audiences that we have done in the past?
But I mean, I think you hit on all the points. Um, like especially when you first get started, right? You have some people who just think the layer audience put everybody we want on the top list, right? So we want entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, all these people, and what you're not realizing is that you're building this huge audience
Yeah,
versus just saying we want an entrepreneur who might be interested in medicine. So you're making a smaller audience. It's I think a good expression would be with that. Think of like dropping half a cup of water, half a cup of water on a table, right? So the bigger the table, the less spread the water is gonna have on the table, right? Like I follow me here, Jonathan. Just follow me for a second, all right? So you got this table, right? And you got this. If you got this huge table, this represents the population of the people you're trying to reach to, and you just want to reach maybe 50,000 people. But if you put everybody for the targeting, but you don't shrink down the label the layered audience, then you're showing that ad that you want to show to 50,000 people to um, 15 million people, right?
yeah,
And you don't really want to show that ad to all those people because all those people are not who you're trying to approach. You're just trying to approach those 50,000. So the best thing to do is try to make the table as small as possible, so as much water can spread across the table. Now,
yeah,
I'm not good with analogies, but that's the first thing I thought of because I think
yeah.
I spilled some water on the
No,
table yesterday, and it made sense to me when I thought about it. You know.
yeah, no. I mean, it does make sense because you want to cover your legitimate audience, and you have trouble covering the legitimate audience if you have to go around all these other people.
Right.
Because they're, the if it's 50,000 people that you're trying to reach, but there's millions of people in the audience, it's hard to get those 50,000 people because it's probably Facebook, it's just showing it is, and I talk about Facebook a lot in this. Facebook is just showing it as fast as they can to whoever shows up on Facebook and has an ability to receive an ad at that time. Um, it's much more efficient to achieve your result when you're getting to the people that actually care, or potentially would be more likely to care. That's the way we have to think about this.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I think the next thing that we wanted to talk about today is taking that same concept. So define your audience. So build the layered audience concept. And there's a variety of ways you can do it with the layered audience. Like there's a lot of testing that goes into it to figure out what works best. So you don't typically we run through multiple variations of layered audiences. Over time it changes, and we base that off the results. So like when we see what's happening in the real world, what kind of leads or customers are coming in, and what are they doing, and what's the feedback they're giving, and then we go and adjust and make adjustments. That's how we came up with the layered audience we were discussing for our e-commerce client, was from real world feedback, and then that led us to the successful variation that we came up with. So the kind of the next phase of that is then thinking of like how you're utilizing the platform and the capabilities of the platform to once again be efficient with budget and taking into account law. And I don't know the actual phrase of this, but like anybody in marketing is familiar with like the concept of seven touches, and it changes over time. Like it goes to different numbers, 12. There's some people say 30. Like there's all these different things about how you got to stay in front of people, and people got to see you and engage with you many times.
I think it's actually called the rule of seven.
Okay,
That's
the
what it
rule of
is.
seven.
The rule of seven. It's like the basic idea is that people got you have to be touched like touch people like 7 times before they make a decision what they want to do. Now, yeah, of course, that number always goes from um, six to I mean five as the lowest I've ever heard, and 10 is the highest I've ever heard. But if you really thought about it, if you thought about between uh, 5 and 10, then it's 7
Yeah.
or 8.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
so that number.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we know that, so and we do, so we know that your likelihood of getting somebody on the first time is lower than your likelihood if you've been in front of that person consistently over a period of time. Um, and you know, two ways to look at it. Either one, just generally just hit them with the same message multiple times, or, in my opinion, even better, uh, continued the narrative to explain and answer away concerns that people may have, or even bring up additional benefits they may not have thought of and things like that. Then you're going to be much more likely than if you're just hitting people one chance and that's it. So um, we look at the platforms, and now I'm talking all three of the ones that we mentioned at the beginning. So we're talking Facebook, Instagram, which are the same, and LinkedIn. They all give you the ability to do something which is called a video view campaign. And so they all have different objectives. So there's campaigns that are designed for leads, for web traffic, for impressions, for video views, for lead forms that are native to the platforms or to the ad platforms, um, app downloads. So, there's all these different things that you can optimize your campaign to achieve. But one of the um, general concepts, I think this is fairly easy to understand, is it's because of the rule of seven and because you need to stay in front of people, it's easier to do that if you're able to build people into audiences and retarget them. And there's obviously things, of concern around using third-party pixels and using third-party data to build audiences and things like that. And that's going to be harder and harder. We've talked about that in previous lives. That's going to be harder and harder as time goes along. But one of the things that when you use something like a video view campaign will allow you to do is that audience is built within the platform natively. So a video view campaign audience is built in Facebook and it's built in LinkedIn. So that's first party data to Facebook and LinkedIn. So they don't have as much issue around that. It's not so much that it's driven by a pixel or anything like that. It's driven by you use the app, right? So you're looking at or you're logged into Facebook. So like they know that you did that in your profile. It's easier for them. It's more straightforward that they're building you into an audience using that type of um, tactic. So what I would say you would typically want to do, or this is something we suggest. So once again, with this, the purpose of this is not to say do this exact thing, but it's to say think creatively like this. So one of the things we do is we build audiences based off video view campaigns for view throughs. So view through on Facebook is a watching a video for 15 seconds. It's a little bit different on LinkedIn, but both of them have the same general functionality. So you basically run an ad, which the purpose of it is for the platform to get people to watch that ad. On Facebook, in-stream video ads really achieve this, and a lot of those are 15 seconds. Guess what? So it's like you have to watch this ad for 15 seconds before you can continue watching the video that you were trying to watch. And guess what that does? It counts as a view through. So you can then go build an audience within the Facebook Ads Manager in your audiences section, which is anybody who had a view through on this video that I'm running in this ad, right? And so then everybody accumulates there. So in this case, what you've done is you've built a layered audience, which is starting point of people who are more likely to be your real users, and you've now exposed them to your brand. You've almost in a captive way, they had to watch something about your brand, and then you've added them to an audience where now you can come behind and start building the narrative. So you know as a starting point, they have some basic awareness of who you are, and then you can explain why they should care over a period of time, which then typically results in cheaper results. So if your creative is good, if your messaging is on point, if your original audience to begin with was accurate, like it makes sense, like these people actually care about whatever it is that you're saying, you will typically get cheaper results. So whatever that result is, whether it's clicks, whether it's leads, um, it will be usually cheaper than if you just target a fresh, brand new audience that's never heard of you before, and you're trying to get those one-off shots, or you're hoping that the platform will show just to the audience with a higher frequency. So I think that's the second piece when we're talking about being creative. The first piece is who's the persona. The second piece is actually then building the audience in a way that incorporates interest, incorporates activities, actions that people may be taking, that may not be as clear as just I'm looking for directors of marketing or VPs of marketing, right? It's like, what would these particular VPs of marketing be doing or be interested in? Or especially if you have if your audience is VPs of marketing, right? There's thousands upon thousands, maybe millions of people who would be director of marketing, VP of marketing, would be that type of position across all the companies in the US or in the world or wherever your audience is. So maybe it's just saying, I know that there's a huge, huge market here, but I want to segment out different types of personas that would be within this one major persona. And then once again, that allows you to tailor your creative to that persona, that specific niche. And so then, yeah, coming behind it with being creative and how do you get in front of that audience, build that audience cost effectively, like less than a penny, right, per person in many cases. The most we're paying right now with any campaign that we're doing this is 3 cents per person. But a lot of the campaigns we're building audience members for less than one penny US dollars. Um, and then from there, now it's okay, you can either resegment, so you can just leave it as is and say anybody who goes into this, now I want to start doing them, uh, putting them down this kind of path of new content. Or you can even segment from there, so you can say, okay, anybody who was in my original audience who saw the content, put them into this second layer audience, this second tier. And then now I even want to like take out and just send a message specifically to men or a message specifically to women if you had a reason to do that. So um, and then the creative would, if it makes sense, the creative is different, the creative would be different based off whatever you change in your segment. And you can generally do this in both LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. The difference is we've been primarily speaking around Facebook. LinkedIn does give you that added benefit of reaching the people based off the titles. So that it's much more accurate there based off the industries, based off the titles and things like that. But it can be super expensive in LinkedIn if you just go that route. So if you just do a basic route where you can make your audience bigger but still have the high probability of being accurate, is where you add in behaviors, activities, and interests on LinkedIn. So there's even things like likelihood of changing roles, right? Things like that, which is crazy, right? That it's saying like I think this these people are likely to change roles based off their past uh, job activity. They
Yeah.
stay in jobs for a year, so it's been a few months, so they're probably getting ready to look for a new job. Um, so yeah, so anything I'm missing on that piece, that because I know we just really built out a couple fresh ones. Maybe I missed on that, Howard.
Not that I really could think of. It just Okay, so Cole, we do a lot of we doing video view strategy, right? Now, like I said, I'm Facebook, right? So this is what I'm thinking with Facebook. Okay, when you're watching a video, right? Let's say you're watching a video on Facebook. What end up happening is that you'll watch a 15-second roll of the video, and then a second video will come around that's like 5 seconds that you can hit the skip button and skip that video, right? So if you're thinking about doing a video ad, try to say as much as you can in the 15 seconds, but try to put a good push, a good punch within the first 3 seconds, right? Something that's going to keep their attention to make them watch that video all the way through. And this will help get more of the video views, so you're not only getting like, um, you know, 25% of the video watch or 50% of the video watch. You're actually getting more of the video watch, and I believe because you're getting more of the video watch, um, the ad spend actually get less. Am I right, Jonathan? I mean, have you noticed this
I
too, or
mean,
is it just me?
yeah, I think so. I think the higher watch frequency, the lower the cost goes, because I think Facebook rewards you in a certain sense. I don't know if that's exactly the way they look at it, but I do feel that we see the ones, when we're looking at ones that cost less than a penny per view through, or 3 cents, right? I think the ones that are less than a penny have a higher view through rate, a higher video completion rate, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I definitely think that first 3 to 5 seconds is critical. I think that even goes to YouTube, because YouTube is notorious for 5 or 6 second pre-rolls that you can skip. Facebook does that, but in my experience personally, I get more 15 second. I have to watch 15 seconds of the video. Much more percentage wise than if I'm watching YouTube videos. YouTube videos, you can mostly skip after 5 or 6 seconds almost every time.
Right.
Um,
They always hit me with that second small little bit of a video at the. So I watched the 15 seconds, and then by the time I okay, let me say this too, and I'm saying this to everybody, including ourselves, right? When you're doing a video, make sure that you're able to get as much as possible, as much information as possible, as little bit as possible. Because there's nothing that worse than you sitting there watching a 15-second video, and then you kind of got interested in it when 12, and then the 3 seconds, by the time you're looking like, okay, I'm going to watch this, you mistakenly hit the skip button because you used to hitting the skip button, right? So try to get as much information you possibly can in the video within the first 15 seconds. Not like get people interested in the first 15 seconds. Try to get as much as the message in 15 seconds and use the rest of the minutes to get more people um, to give more details
yeah,
on the video that's
elaborate.
being watched.
Yeah,
Elaborate. Thank you. And so yeah, because there have been so many ads that I sit there and like, man, I really wanted to learn more, but I already don't skipped it, so I don't remember the ad. And you're hoping that you see the ad again, but sometimes it doesn't show. And
yeah,
so, I mean, this is just a public announcement to anybody who's gonna be doing video ads. Please, man, please try to get as much of your information in there as possible because I might be interested in what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to provide. I want you to give me as much as information as possible in as small as amount of time as possible. That makes sense.
yeah. No, exactly. And that's what, and it happens to me too. Like I see, I'm not gonna start calling out brands or anything, but I see, because of, I'm in the digital marketing space. I'm the owner of a digital marketing agency. I see a ton of ads about digital marketing, SaaS tools for marketing, and other marketing agencies and things like this that are advertising to companies and things like that. And I can't tell you how many times in the pre-roll, in the in-stream video ads or pre-rolls and stuff like that, were exactly what Howard's saying. they go into it and almost make their point, and then the video goes away. Like their 15 seconds ends, and it's like you have to understand the deliverability of the ad that you're running.
Yes.
And if you're running an ad in an ad slot that literally is 15 seconds, that's it. There is no, like on YouTube, you can keep watching an ad. And so this is where understanding the differences in the platforms is critical. In YouTube, you keep watching it if you want to. You don't have to skip. You could watch a 1 hour video, right? I've seen people put like 45-minute hour videos in the ad, and the first 6 seconds is so great that you just keep watching it. You may watch the whole thing, right? But if you're running these in-stream Facebook ads, at 15 seconds, it's over. Like it leaves, it goes and resumes the video, it does something else. So if you don't get to your point in the first 15 seconds, you wasted that view. Granted, you can build a retargeting audience and you can now follow up with me with the full video as like an as just a traditional, it's going to show up as the primary content in a sponsored ad that's going to just show up in the newsfeed, and that's part of what we do. But to Howard's point, it's better if you got to that point in the first 15 seconds. So the thing that they got when they first engaged with you was, here's the point of why you should care about our brand, about our company and what we do. Then now when you follow up, you may be wanting to know more about those details and the specifics. Like, okay, I get what you're saying. Now I'm going to sit here and listen to this 3 minute video because you intrigued me when I saw this yesterday, and now I want to see what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I think it's yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's like you have to understand where it's going to show. Sometimes you don't because things change all the time. So you may think, and we've been guilty of this in the past. We think that an ad is going to show in a certain way, and then we do some research and we start looking at the stats and seeing the view rates and like what percentage, and we come to understand that where the platform is actually showing the ad and the way they're actually showing it is a little bit different than we thought. So then we have to make an adjustment in the actual creative itself. Or if our goal is to get people watching for 15 seconds, um, do is it strictly 15 seconds? Is it 16 seconds? Is it 20 seconds? Like do we just put a graphic up and roll it out for 20 seconds, but that way if there's a variation in how they display it, there's something to fit that slot. And then at the end of the day, sometimes we just run the whole video in the 15-second slot, just to definitively make it clear that there's more to this video, and then we're going to come behind it. So there's a lot of as always, testing. It changes all the time. Like the platforms change. They're testing just as we all are testing and trying to figure out what works. They're trying to figure out what people like or dislike on their platform. They obviously don't want to lose users because they're providing a frustrating user experience. And then we want to make sure that we're effectively achieving the goals that we're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's just a balancing act, and it never ends. And it's you see people who set stuff on autopilot and they leave it there for months and months, and same kind of stuff is happening. And it's just the results are diminishing because they're not taking into account the things that have changed in the market and the environment, in the platform, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so I hope this has been helpful, for anybody who's watching, who gets to this point. Um, I think this is something we talk about this all the time. We think about this on a very granular level. We get really detailed into conversations around this about why we should try something, and our hypothesis. What do we think is going to happen from this? What's the logic around building a video view audience, for instance? Like we went back and forth on that because historically, yeah, you could do that, but a lot of people, the general logic is building a retargeting audience around a website visitor. So somebody visits your website and now you want to retarget them based off the page they landed on or whatever the case may be. I think thinking forward, that's going to be harder and harder to do. So rather than rely on that and try to like hack that process, overcome iOS 15, 14, 15, whatever, um, rather than rely on these new technologies that are going to be basically doing the same thing that's the problem now that people don't want, people don't want these things now. Like it's about thinking of is there a better way to do it? Will using the platforms itself versus these pixels or third party data, will that result in cheaper ad spend for results because maybe the platform prefers that? And I think that's true of Facebook. It just you know I don't have like this huge data pool to pull that from, but I do believe that as you use Facebook derived audiences, and those are people who've done video views, those are people who've engaged with posts, engaged with your page, just taken actions on Facebook in general, um, not the audience network. So on Facebook or Instagram, and then the same thing with LinkedIn, people who take action on your post, on your page, on your video, lead form, whatever the case may be. Um, I think it's effective at the least. Whether or not at the end of the day it's cheaper than if people came to your website and you're retargeting them, I don't know that for certain. But I think thinking forward, thinking to the future, 2021 Q4, 2022 throughout the year, to move away from relying on third party pixels, the sooner you come up with effective strategies that don't rely on that, the better off you're going to be in the long run. And to be honest, we've been seeing equally equally good or better results, and we haven't been relying really on pixels for audience building for some time, for several months. We've really not, I can't even remember an audience that we've retargeted based off website visits in a while. Now, we still use it for conversion tracking, things like that, but not really audience building. We've been really relying within the platforms, and it's been effective, and that's where we're going to keep going. So let me try to recap what we said here really quick. So the first thing is before you start down this path is to understand your persona at a deeper level, or at least come up with hypothesis about your audience at a deeper level if you're in the B2B world than the traditional persona you're going after when you're talking to your sales team, when you're thinking of LinkedIn, or when you're thinking of using a data partner to go do outbound. You got to go beyond that. What's motivating these people? What motivates them in their personal life, even outside of their business motivations? And then trying to go recreate that within the audiences. And then you want to narrow the audience. So you want to use layers to say, I think this is who this person is, and they must also be this, and they must also be this, and so on and so forth, which results in a smaller, more targeted audience. And then I think you want to creatively use the functionality available within the platforms to really efficiently stay in front of those people who are most likely to be your customers or clients, and build the narrative, go for the rule of seven or more, and keep the content fresh, keep it relevant to them. Um, yeah, and then using all this logic, like as Howard was pointing out, to then create content that uh, speaks to these people, that is going to be standing out compared to all the other messages that they're seeing, all the other ads that they're seeing. Any closing comments from you, Howard, for today?
Now, man, you hit all points. You know, like you said, you just got to understand the platform as well. because one thing may work on one platform but not on another, right? So you got to do. I guess the best term I could think of is a remix. That one may do well on this but not on that, and so keep in mind of the platform and think of the different variations you can do with with your creative. You know, sometimes video work good on one thing, and image may work well on another. You know, so always just keep in mind of your creative and the platform, as well as the audience and such things as that.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, thanks. If you stuck with us now, we're about 51 minutes in here. Um, Thank you. I'm glad you joined us, and I hope you'll join us again next time. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel or click the notification bell, and then that way next week on next Thursday when we go live, you'll get a notification, and we'll see you again then. And otherwise, we hope you are getting some great leads and getting some sales this week.
No doubt.
And we hope to see you again soon. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them here. Come to our website, sparkoutbound.com. You can reach us through our web forms. We'll be happy to have a discussion with anybody about anything related to this or any of the other digital marketing lead generation things we focus on. Um, Thanks for Howard for joining us and talking about how he thinks about things when he's building the creative and working through the audiences when we're building those audiences. And we look forward to talking about another topic next week. Thanks again, and we hope to see you soon. Have a good one.